record for you as well. Now, just quickly touching on Jimmy, if you don't mind. Now, you guys were friends and you jammed together quite a lot, didn't you? Wasn't there a story about how you almost ended up in a band together as well?
Yes, it was on reflection. It was set up by Chris Stamp, who was co-manager with Kit Lambert of ourselves and the Who, and of course Hendrix came out on Track Records. So there was a point at which Jimmy he wanted to go further. He'd come to a certain point. He was experimenting with all the electronics, but he wanted to go further, and he wanted a multimedia show with projections on the big screen.
Yeah.
And he wanted Vincent Crane on keyboard. He wanted the experience, and then he didn't like his singing at that time.
Okay.
So he wanted me to sing and to be the dramatic figure, because he wanted to make the music dramatic. He wanted to have some classical music involved, samplings, that would be called samples now, but of course in those days they'd have to play it through a tape recorder. And this big sound, and it was his way of I'll go bigger, involve more of the media of the day. And so we were beginning that when Vincent had to go, and he committed himself in the end to Banstead, which was sort of a place that looked after your mental states, and so he was in there for several months, and then he came out, and he was much better. But that kind of put the if you like, the blank on it from the point of view of we would have had to wait and find someone else who had the capacity to have the same kind of mood with Vincent, play in the same way. And so I began to think, well, I'd like to develop my own style if I'm not going to be with Vincent in there, having that. And of course, it was a great experience to sing with Jimmy, and to go down to say the Scene Club in New York, and Steve Paul's Scene it was called, and to do a 2-hour jam 4 times in a week, 4 times in a week, and just throw away all concept of any numbers we knew. Just everything came out in the moment, fresh, and the amount of energy was just enormous. And of course, for him, he was enjoying just doing the guitar and testing. Where can he go up here? I go, yeah, look. and we ended up in some very strange musical places, but I remember one of the audience coming up afterwards and saying that was a sheer festival of joy.
Wow.
And that felt so we managed to connect with the audience, and that would have been an amazing band, I think, in the terms of all the other super groups that were put together. And
shame, a real shame.
Well, he after that decided that he would go the opposite direction. and formed the trio, the blues trio, and went right back to his roots. So and still found it as a progress of his own perception of the blues and everything. So yeah, it was nothing but a good experience, except for what then happened with
Yeah.
Vincent.
Yeah. And just on Jimmy himself, I mean, I've spoken to other people that worked with Jimmy and met Jimmy and played with Jimmy and all that sort of stuff, and they all say he was a humble guy. I mean, what was he like as a person? Not we all know what his genius was like as a musician, but in terms of a person, what was Jimmy like?
Well, I couldn't say that I was, one of his great friends. We hit it off and we communicated. Sometimes you communicate with one word, you know. And I do remember going to see him in his flat. Well, it was in his, not the flat, but the apartment in the hotel. And he was trying to get together some pieces for this band that he was in. And so he decided he was going to write it on musical staff paper, the
Yeah.
real music. So when I went in, there were about 40 of them on the floor, all of them with a maximum of 7 notes on. It was like, no, not that. And then goes out. That's not. And then, or maybe you'd write it and then play it and go, oh. And with that, he had very few words at all. But I did find him, just not a self-selling person,
Yeah.
In fact, and more the other way.
Yeah.
I thought he was very realistic about it all. He also had a feeling that the audience were his people, and that he needed to speak in a way like maybe a preacher would to his congregation, but this was his musical people. And so he needed to do all those things. And I'm sure that Lambert probably got him to do that because I remember him saying to me, Lambert, okay, now you've got a #1 hit. Remember that you now have a duty to the audience that put you there. And, don't just rest on your laurels and do another one like that. Try and see what you can do. Unfortunately, that company fell apart for a couple of years. So I left track and then did Kingdom Come, which was another experimental approach.